Good evening. It's November 17th, 2021. Welcome to our legislative session, and we're going to start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, hello everybody. Good evening. I see Martha has spring flowers on in the background. Makes me smile. Thank you, Martha. Excuse me. You'll have to excuse me, folks. Sort of have a little bit of a cold. So hopefully we'll make it through. So we're going to start, I believe, attendance. Yes, Martha?
Okay, Trustee Fritchie?
Here.
Trustee Lopez?
Here.
Trustee White?
Here.
Trustee Quesada?
Present.
Mayor Levin?
I'm here.
Okay, we have our first public hearing on proposed local law 13 of 2021, a local law amending chapter 8 civilian police complaint review board of the Village of Ossining Code. If you would like to speak on the public hearing, please raise your virtual hand, and we are limiting comments to 4 minutes, correct?
Right. Let me just go through this. If we were actually doing it in a public forum, we used to hold this in the courthouse. We would ask people to write their names down and we'd go in an order. Every person speaks once so that people have an opportunity, so that all people have an opportunity to speak that want to speak. If you have anything in writing, they can be added to the minutes if you so desire. We would ask you to state your name. We would ask you to tell us your address or whether you're a resident in the Village of Ossining, which is our constituency area. And let me go through this, and you can raise your virtual hand. And we're going to have on Zoom, I think we decided that Jamie Hoffman is going to bring people over, and somebody will actually have a clock on. They'll raise their hand or give you a signal when you're near, when you have a minute left. You don't have to speak for the entire 4 minutes, but you're welcome to speak up to 4 minutes. Everybody has an opportunity to speak on either of the public hearing matters, but we're going to start with the one that we just talked about, which is proposed local law 13-2021. Giving everybody time to raise their hand. We're going to do it in the order that Jamie sees it.
Sure. We have someone, so we have a couple of hands so far. So
yep, see them.
Sure. So I'm going to bring over Daria Gregg, and I'm going to bring you over. If you can please, when you come over, if you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Once you do that and introduce yourself, then the timer will start. Are you over? I can't see. There, Sherry, you need to turn your camera on for us to see you, or you can just speak.
I am attempting to do that. Didn't first click, it didn't do it.
That's all right. Well, we see you now. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to begin the count.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Daria Gregg. I live at 51 Old Albany Post Road in Ossining, in the town of Ossining, but the Village of Ossining is my police department. I have reviewed the local law, and I did submit today to Omar Lopez and Mayor Levin my written comments, but I'll just read them. All of us remember the summer of 2020 when it seemed like we were bombarded weekly with another incident of police violence against people in our country. Our collective conscience was raised regarding the systemic, sometimes unconscious racism in our country. Then our New York governor called all municipalities with police departments to perform a comprehensive review of practices and policies to promote fair and transparent community-oriented policing strategies designed to eliminate racism and racial disparities with the Executive Order 203. I was so proud of Ossining when it tackled this task wholeheartedly, with committees formed covering many aspects of the problem. I attended many of these public hearings, and it seemed like the committees were taking their job seriously, coming up with many useful suggestions to improve Ossining police relations with our community. Tonight, we are discussing the draft proposal of the local law 13-2021, which covers the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board, the CPCRB. Previously, Ossining was probably the only municipality with such a board in Westchester County, I should add. However, many complained that it had no teeth and did not really work. The changes in this proposal address all the recommendations of the Order 203 committee that the Board of Trustees agreed to. However, it fails in some important areas. Some of my fellow members from the racial equity group at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley will cover the areas that I will not tonight. I will, however, discuss 2 areas of the local law that need to be clarified for future reference. Number 1, the CPCRB cannot have direct contact with the person who has registered the complaint. They can read the original complaint if directed first to them by corporation counsel. If the complaint goes to the police, it seems like it can only read the Ossining Police Department investigator's translation of the complaint. In the proposed law, it is not clear that the CPCRB will read the original complaint if it is originally sent to the police. How can you expect the CPCRB to come up with their own determination when it has already been written from a police's perspective? Ideally, in my opinion, they need to hear both sides and see all the evidence to come to any conclusion. The second item is to add to this serious flaw. The proposed law says the CPCRB cannot have indirect contact with the complainant. If a member has been found to have this indirect contact, it can be grounds for dismissal. However, the proposed law does not define indirect contact. Does that mean that they might have accidentally read about the complaint in social media? What does it mean by indirect contact, and how will it be proven? Thank you for my time.
Okay, thank you. I am going to move you back over. It's going to take me just a moment. Sorry. It's...
Right. Thank you, Ms. Gregg, for
Thank you.
sharing the information. I saw that you had sent it. At the time that you sent it, I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I did skim it. So I appreciate you reading it out loud so that I could take notes and go back to that, and that will also be filed. I'm just looking at my notes to see if I have any specific questions, but I don't think I do, because I think that was very clear. Thank you.
Okay, the next person I'm going to bring over is Leah Nelson. I'm promoting you to panelist. If you can turn on your camera, that would be great, and unmute yourself. And when you introduce yourself, then I will begin the clock.
There she is.
There you are. Okay.
We see you, but you need to unmute if you can.
There I am.
There you are.
Hi, I'm Leah.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am actually a resident of Putnam County, but my church is in the Ossining district. It belongs to the Briarcliff Ossining Ministerial Association. I'm also a member of NU and have a lot of friends in Ossining. I shop in Ossining. I love Ossining. So I just had some comments on the proposed new law and the CPCRB. The purpose of creating the CPCRB and making the changes the BOT agreed to last March was to ensure a just process for citizens to lodge complaints about police personnel who abuse their power or commit misconduct. The changes I see in this draft are a little bit walking back the promises made in March, and effectively will, I think, dilute the power of the CPCRB. Also will make it more difficult for the members to do their jobs, and will make the positions on the CPCRB difficult to fill. The first point was the change referring to the appointments of chair and vice chair by the BOT is concerning to me. I see a potential for abuse of power and top-down appointments to the CPCRB. And I thought these positions were originally to be voted on by the CPCRB. Number two, the wording in the complaint form about false statements when filing a complaint. I believe it's unnecessarily intimidating to someone who wants to file a complaint. And maybe that could be changed. The other thing was that the CPCRB members, Daria also mentioned this, are not permitted to have direct or indirect contact with complainants. So they must solely rely on the police version of events. I think this would inhibit a fair investigation if they can't actually talk to the complainants. Also, the many requirements imposed on the CPCRB members make finding citizen candidates for this unpaid position unnecessarily difficult. The training for the CPCRB members is excessive. Case in point, untrained citizens sit on juries every day and can discern right from wrong when provided with evidence. Limiting the time CPCRB members may serve, especially the one-year term for the chair and vice chair, narrows the pool of eligible candidates. And excluding school employees and their entire families also further narrows the pool of eligible candidates. In conclusion, I have an idea, and I would like to suggest paying the CPCRB members for their work on this board. I think they're doing a service for the community and will have to devote many hours with obstacles and intensive requirements to fill. As I understand, Ossining will be receiving a mobile mental health unit in 2022.
10 seconds.
The addition of this unit will lighten the workload on Ossining's police department and thereby reduce the cost of Ossining's police department to the taxpayer. Taxpayers may prefer to pay the CPCRB to make certain the police
Okay,
service.
Ms. Nelson, we can take your written, if you're reading off a written, you can submit that, but I'm going to have to sort of bring this to a close. If you could please bring it to a close, I appreciate
Yep.
it.
That was it.
Okay, so I'm not gonna do a question and answer because it's a hearing. It's not a town hall. It's not public. I do want to do some points of clarification. As a rule, we don't pay any volunteers. We have about 13 committees. We don't pay volunteers to sit on the committees. There have been years where, in fact, when I joined the board, the EAC had a hard time getting volunteers. Maybe it's just the time of year. Maybe people weren't interested in the topic. We don't know. Landlord tenant did not have people sitting on. The Board of Ethics was down to one person, therefore was not able to have a committee. So we're talking about the law because this is part of the plan that was submitted, is to look at these issues, but we wouldn't pay volunteers. And if people in the community are not interested in being on a committee, then we can either make changes or figure out why they're not interested. I mean, it's a nice idea. Cities do pay. So your idea is not out of the realm, because in fact, many cities do pay council people to sit on all sorts of committees. It isn't just this particular one. One could argue that this committee is more intricate than other committees. I think people on other committees would argue, like on the land use boards, that they do a heck of a lot of work, more work, and it's more complicated, and they have to have a lot of training. So does this. So it's hard to sit here and weigh which volunteer organization. If you talk to Green Ossining, those folks will tell you they do the most work because they put on fairs, they do all sorts of stuff. So we don't have either an appetite or, frankly, a desire to do that. It's volunteer organization. So this is more of a point of clarity, not really a discussion of how hard people work. I think the rest of The pieces were sort of interesting. I took down notes as quickly as I can have it, but this is being recorded so I could step back and look at everything that you said myself. Others can do what they want. So I appreciate your time very much. Jamie? I think Ms.
So the next
Stillman is
person-
on next.
Yes, Virginia Stillman, I'm going to bring you over. If you can turn your camera on and your, I'm not letting me do it, or your, oh, she no longer has her.
Virginia,
Yeah, no, I don't see her anymore.
what happened?
I don't know. Virginia, do you want me to bring you over? You'd have to raise your hand again so that I don't want to be inappropriate. And yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there she is.
Okay, she put her hand down, so I'm putting her. Okay. All right, Virginia, if you can turn your camera on, please, and unmute.
Ah, there she is. You need to unmute. We see you, we see your mouth moving, but you're unmute. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for this opportunity. First, let me say that since June 2020, I have followed the PRRC process in Ossining and believe that one of the primary goals of any police reform and reinvention process is to ensure the accountability of the police force, and as well as to build trust within the community. The CPCRB is one very important tool to ensure an effective and fair way to hold the police accountable. So while there are many good changes that I see in the draft of the law 30-2021, there are also some changes that I have a few questions about that I'd like to share with you. So I'll be fairly short and sweet. Some of them have been mentioned already. So the changes to the appointment, the term length, and the term limits for the CPCRB chair and vice chair. Why does a proposed law change the chair and vice chair from being elected by a majority of the CPCRB members to being appointed by the Board of Trustees? Most boards that I have served on allow the board members to elect the chair and vice chair. Is the BOT involved enough with the CPCRB board, or do they attend enough meetings to really know who would be best to appoint to these two positions? And finally, why shouldn't the BOT be acting as a neutral party and not hand select who they think would be the best chair or vice chair? As the law is currently written, a CPCRB member is already appointed by the BOT just to be a member. So I would agree with the current definition or the current process that it should be an election by the members of the CPCRB board. And why is the term for the chair and the vice chair limited to just 1 year with no more than 2 consecutive one-year terms? My concern here is that there could be too much churn and not enough time for a new chair to learn the ropes to become an effective leader. There could be a loss of continuity when the position changes hands potentially every year. Additionally, I question the changes made to the term limits for members and alternate members serving the remainder of a term. This just needs a little more clarification. Is a member who is serving the remainder of a term for a former member entitled to serve for 4 more consecutive terms? Or does the partial term count towards one of those 4 consecutive terms, or in addition to 4 consecutive terms? It seems a little fuzzy. So I hope the Board of Trustees will have a chance to address some of these concerns, as well as some of the ones from some of my colleagues. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. I think you sent something as well, yes? Yes, you sent this in writing to us in an email?
Yes, I did.
Great,
I sent
so
it to you.
that's helpful because we'll
Yes.
be able to, even though you read it all, again, took notes. So I want to just, again, clarify, not have have a conversation about it, but like words actually mean things to me. So there were a few things that were said. First of all of the committees all of the committees, even the land use committees, which are appointed by the manager, chairs are appointed and they're all very different. So it would be nice to have consistency. How they're appointed, when, and the terms may differ. And we have changed them over time. It is not unusual as we look at boards to reevaluate how chairs are appointed, but they're appointed. Some had vice chairs, some don't. We'd actually like all of our committees over time to have vice chairs, and we would like to make that change probably this year going into next year, because the vice chairs oftentimes are the ones that are sort of, let's call them chairs in training, but it's not mandated to be that way. Except for the committees, and every committee is slightly different. And all of the appointed members of all of the committees which serve the board, actually, that is the purpose of the committees, is that we actually interview people. Generally, 2 trustees interview members, including task force and everything. There's a purpose to our interviewing, which is to get to know people. And where things are videotaped, some of us do follow up. We follow up on complaints made by members of certain committees. This is all to answer, how do we know people if we don't ourselves sit on every single committee? So that's some of the ways that we know. And we actually, and as I have done myself, call members of different committees to ask them how the committee is working out. We also oftentimes do exit interviews when people leave. Trustees and almost all of our committees have liaisons. Some have 2. In the case, some have 2 and some have 1. Well, we try to get 2, but there are only 5 of us, and there are 13 committees plus all the other responsibilities that many of us take on. We're not obligated to, but we do take them on, and we assign chairs to them. We assign them. You use the word chair and leader. The chairs are there to chair the meetings. This is not an advocacy group. None of our committees are advocacy groups. Our chairs are not leaders. They are chairing committees. I chair these committees. This event that we're having right now, the legislative session, the work session, is actually something the village manager is more in charge of. The point of it being that the word leader is a little misrepresented here. These are not advocacy groups. They're not lobby groups. They're not non-for-profits. They're not political organizations. So I just want to be clear that chairs are there to chair the meetings. Some chairs on some committees have added responsibility, the CPRB being one of them, but that is all listed out very clearly of what the chairs have as added responsibility that they take on. And if they don't want to take it on, those folks probably wouldn't want to be chairs of committees like this. We have that in some of our other committees as well. There's some consistency there. So I just took some notes down of some words, and I just wanted some points of clarification. And I do appreciate some of the comments, and I will look at it in video again so that I can capture everything, but I know that you've already given that to us. Who's next? I don't see any hands up, so I'm not clear if I'm just not seeing hands up or.
There's a hand up. Jermaine
Okay.
Smith is going to be brought over. If Jermaine, you can turn your camera on and
Great.
mute yourself when you come over. Then when you do so, then I will begin your time. I don't see you. Huh.
What's happened? Oh, there he
Oh,
is.
there you are. Okay, you just need to.
Hello, Jermaine. Good
Hello,
evening.
everyone. Good evening. Couple statements and points of clarification. One, the CPCRB has never really had any teeth. They've never really done investigations. The report comes in, the police department does the investigations, and the report goes back to the CPCRB. So I think there's a misconception of they can't review the investigation material in its entirety. They can't interview witnesses. They can't, they really have no substance as part of this process. And that's been from the beginning. So I think when we talk about them losing power or whatever this is about this, they've never really had anything of substance. So I think one, we have to start misrepresenting what the actual board is doing. They're not really doing an investigation. So what they're doing is looking at the investigation that the police department has done, and then they're giving their opinion as to whether or not they agree with it or not, based off of what the police department is telling them. So there's no real, we can't come to the same consensus. We're not doing an equal investigation of this process. The police department is doing the investigation, and then the board is reviewing what the police department work was. So so I think that point of clarification has to be in the forefront of this conversation. We talked about the CPCRB having this training requirement and things like that. And as Leah Nelson mentioned, people serve all the time without doing any training with juries and make these legal decisions and determinations on matters that are far more serious than some of the things that we see here. But with that being said, the CPCRB also doesn't make any final decisions on any of the courses of action or any of the activities that happen to police after they found guilty or there's a complaint is found to be substantiated or whatever that is. That goes to the Board of Trustees. And to my understanding, you guys haven't been partaking in that training that you're requiring the CPCRB to partake in. So if that is so important, and we're talking about the life of these police officers, and the CPCRB having it required to have this training in order to review a report that's being done by the police department that they really can't see all the evidence on, and then they don't make a decision on what the ramifications of that being substantiated. That's actually left at the hands of the police commissioners, who are the Board of Trustees. But you guys are not required to take that same level of training. So that we're putting out this narrative as if this board has to do this training, they do this investigation, they come up to the same parallel decision as the police department, and then they're part of the decision making as far as what happens to the police. When all what's happening is they see some of these complaints, they hand it off to the police department, they get a report back with everything the police department has done, with none of the interviews. They can't see recorded material. If it is recorded, they can't interview they can't say, well, let me talk to the witnesses and see if their story matches up what they're telling you. They can't have any access with the witnesses. So there's a lot in that is just doesn't seem to be genuine in how we're presenting it to the people, and it's evident by what some of the people are saying about them not having any substance or losing substance, and the things that are going on. There is some frustration in limiting the scope of the time that the chairperson can serve to 1-year terms and 2 consecutive terms, as opposed to a traditional regular serving member. I have the same concerns with continuity and just having some consistency in that. Another question I have, or something that I noted, is that it was prior to this change, it was explicitly stated that the police chief cannot serve as a member of the CPCRB, and that's now being removed. And I'm not sure. And I'm not sure what the purpose of that being removed from. If he can't serve, then why are we removing that? Let's just explicitly say that he's not allowed to serve as a part of the board. Not that he wants to, probably he has enough to do, but I don't know why that's being removed from the work. So those are just some of my concerns, and I'll write some up and I will actually send it to the board as well. Thank you guys. I'm hoping you can answer some of the questions.
If you give me just a moment, I'll bring Mr. Smith back over.
So I don't know if I'm going to answer all the questions now because it's a hearing session, but I will say that a few of us have discussed, not only this year, but last year, we aren't required to, and as you said, a jury is not required to know all the laws in order to serve on a jury. Judges, however, do need to know, and they run the courts. So there's a lot of checks and balances. There's also checks and balances in that we, when we desire to get opinions, and we do this all the time, you can look at our budget, we hire attorneys who specialize in different fields, whether it's labor, because it might be an employee issue with a police officer, whether it's a criminal expert, so we do have access to legal expertise when we need and when we want it. So it isn't exactly about what we as individuals may or may not know, because there are elections every 2 years, and just like the volunteer organizations, you're right, it's difficult. I actually would like to have at least 1 or 2 trustees take some of the courses. And we have discussed, and that came out of a number of sessions, simply because I think it would be helpful. It would be helpful to take some of these courses. I would find them interesting. I don't know if we can require future boards to be mandated to do so. That'll be up to them as individuals who sit in the chairs. But I do think it's a good idea. I don't know if it would be mandated. We were asked to cut back on some of the course load that members of the CPRB would take because it seemed like overwhelming, and we worked towards skinning that down a bit. The members of the board aren't the ones that talk about power or less power or more power. That actually has come from this conversation, the people speaking to us. It isn't the language that we use. So just to be clear, we're sort of mixing apples and oranges here, because it isn't the board that had said that about the powers of the different people. So I just think that the point about whether commissioners, police commissioners, who are the members of the board trustees, at least in this village, it's not like that in every municipality, should take some more of the courses might be interesting. And so I'm adding it to my list to think through and see if that's something anybody else would be interested on the board in doing. But again, we have access to lawyers who do have expertise in this, and anybody else that we want, whether it's NICOM, whether it's the county, whether it's the DA's office. There's lots of sources of information that we can tap into to learn more and to do more on short order if such a situation occurred. Trying to see if there were any other things I wanted to just sort of clarify. I think that's it for now, and look forward to when you send us the email, I'll have it more in writing. I'm not seeing hands up. A little bit of that was a little tap dancing to give people an opportunity.
We do have one
because
person.
I see
have-
2 actually.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so Ms. Cabrera, I'm going to bring you over. If you can turn your camera on and unmute, that'd be great. Thank you. And I will start your timing when you see.
great. Thank you, and I'm seeing her, not hearing her yet, not yet. All right, welcome, Ms.
Hi.
Cabrera.
So first off, I actually want to start with a comment about the way this process has gone. The public has not been kept informed about what's happening here. We're at a public hearing now because people didn't know that they had an opportunity to look at this document and discuss it and ask questions when the Board of Trustees was previously looking at it. The Board of Trustees has known that this is a topic that the village is very interested in. You all know that you can do your job to inform the public when something that they're very interested in is coming up. Mayor Levin, you're a marketing professional. You know how to get public engagement when it is desired. It is very clear that this was not desired for this topic, and that's very upsetting to me as a community member. So I do want to be very clear that I'm not happy about that. And I think there are other members of the public who have reached out to me and had that same concern. Going on to the actual legislation at hand, I also want to remind the board and everybody here that the CPCRB's job is to do oversight. We are not the same as every other board. We're not doing recreation. We're not doing things that are, you know, to better the community in the way that the EAC is doing. It's not the same type of board. This board is providing oversight more akin to what the ethics committee is actually doing. And the ethics committee does choose its own chair. If we want people in this community to trust in the CPCRB's process, it needs to be very clear to every member of the public that the CPCRB is independent and that our processes are fair. And when we are doing things like removing the board's ability to choose their own chair, when we are adding language to our complaint forms that is very clearly intimidating and difficult to read beyond the reading comprehension of most Americans, we are showing that we're not interested in actual accountability. We are interested in a facade of accountability. And that's what I'm seeing happening with a lot of the changes that are being proposed in this law. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Most of that good stuff came out of the out of the police reform and reinvention process. If we had not had that process, I am worried about what this would even look like. This is a chance to make a stronger and more trustworthy CPCRB. And by adding these provisions that are worrying many members of our community, we're showing people that we don't actually care enough to give them a process that will be fair and will work. And I do want to make a couple of comments about things that have been said. I have specifically on multiple occasions when things have come up with the CPCRB as chair, I have asked the Board of Trustees to speak with individual members. To my knowledge, that hasn't happened. I don't know if maybe it happened and I just wasn't informed. But I certainly did not know that did happen. I don't believe it has. And the members of the CPCRB are not akin to judges. I don't think that is a fair comparison at all. Thank you.
I'm unmuting. Thank you. So we're going to answer some of the comments at the end and get more clarification. Thank you for thinking I'm a great marketing communications expert. It helps in the sense that not all mayors, in fact, very few, do weekly e-blasts to the community highlighting certain pieces. The important thing on that e-blast is a reminder every single week of the link to our website that has publicly noticed all agenda items. You go on the link and you see everything that's coming up the following sessions, whether they're work sessions or whether they are legislative sessions, and it links you there. I don't highlight everything. I find that redundant. I highlight things that might be new, that might be interesting, that might be fun, that might be holiday related. That's my communication as mayor. Very rarely done by most mayors, including ones that have a staff that does it for them. So I take pride in actually making sure that people every week have an easy link to the agenda, whether they choose to use that link or not. That's on them. I'm told that there are about 7,200 people now that get the newsletter. To get it, you actually have to ask and request to be on that list with Constant Contact. It's not just something we send out. And that number has gone up. So that's a good sign that many members of the public actually are interested in the information, read it, I think, and follow it. So I'm happy to do that. In addition, that letter along with that link is sent through every 2 weeks with the web blast. Some of it is timely, some of it isn't, but yet another form of communication. And of course, our website has every week. People can go on and see all the agenda items. It isn't curated. It just lists what's going to be on the agenda. Our work sessions usually are done the week before the laws are discussed. So you get the work session where discussions go on. Following week, you get the legislative sessions, which discuss the actual law. And we hold public hearings like this for every law that we pass, whether it's a cabaret license for the same cabaret that's had it for 5 years, or whether it's something that's multi-year, or something that's serious, or something that may be important to somebody, like a naming of a street. If it's legislative, if it's the law, you do the public hearing across all of them. We've been discussing this. There is no hiding it. People have to click through, get the agenda, or go on the website to look at it. And public hearings like this are publicly noticed 10 days in advance. That's another form of communication. If you ask me if that's enough, the answer is it's never enough. I'm married for 28 years, and I tell my husband all the time that we need to improve our communication skills. I'm married more than the average American, but I'm going to tell you that it's never enough communication. And frankly, I zone out of most communications because it's too much clutter. Too much communication, not enough. There is never the right balance. And yes, I've been doing marketing, but I'm going to tell you as a marketer, there's never the right amount. But we do all of that for every single piece of legislation that we pass. Secondly, I don't judge the importance of one committee over another. So the people who sit on that committee, that is really important. I will tell you that the people who sit on EAC feel that the environment is the most important issue facing our community. It's in the news. It is worldwide issues, and we sit on the bank of one of the largest rivers in the United States, and that's really important for them. And they tune into that, and they'll consider that. And I'll tell you that the Board of Ethics might think that they're really important, but they're an entirely different group, and they make recommendations to the board. They would tell you it's not exactly a lot of teeth, except they make recommendations and they get asked questions by any one of us or our attorney or anybody that wants to get information about ethical behavior. That is to say that no one committee is more important than any other committee to the people who sit on that committee. No one committee is more important to this community and to the public for the people who are involved in those issues at that time. And so I would differ on that sort of classification. And yes, some require lots of hours of work and some require really virtually no hours of work except the once a month meeting. Not all of them meet once a month. They cancel a bunch of their meetings. They may not have to. That's fine. So I do take a little bit of, I'm not really sure about, that this particular topic should have been curated in a different way or a more important way or anything else. Because again, I think that there's difference level depending on who the public is. The public is not an individual. The public is made up of almost 30,000 human beings. And so when I hear somebody says the public, what they usually mean is I. And when they say we, they usually mean I. And even the trustees who sit on this board, who represent the public, oftentimes say, in my opinion and my personal vote, my one vote, because we actually have learned to recognize that the public is not one thing. It is a conglomeration of many ideas and many people, and some are involved in the politics of the community they live in, some aren't. And that's the way it's always going to be. And some are involved in other communities and national issues, not so much the local issues. So for the idea of like how this is presented and why we present it that way, we have rules of how we present. We publicly notice all of these. We record all our meetings. We actually have more communication in this community than most cities twice our size. So I think that the previous mayors over the years have done a very good job in increasing and bettering communication. And we in this administration continue to try to do better. And it's never going to get perfect, but I do think it's better. I see another hand up, so I don't want to take up somebody else's time. And I think I'm going to ask Stuart at the end, because I know you're taking notes, to just we can discuss at the end, maybe some points of clarification. And Trustee Lopez, I would think, not speaking for him, might at the end have some comments since he's actually a liaison to some of this and might be able to maybe enlighten us on something. So Jamie,
Yes.
I'm seeing one hand up.
Yes, I am bringing over, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. Kaido Gray, I am bringing you over now. We're trying to, okay, there you are. So please, if you could turn your camera on and unmute, thank you.
There is. What
Hello.
happened? Oh, hello, welcome.
Hi.
I lost you in my own gallery.
Hi,
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's Keto. Yeah, I get that all the time. First, thanks for taking the time for all this. I wanted to say that I think I believe in the importance of having the CPCRB. It's having an independent way to have accountability. police department, I think is important for the trust in the community. I think it's an excellent opportunity for the police to partner with them, to show it, to show the community that that both the police and the public really can work together to show that that there's trust and communication. To that point, I know a lot of people mentioned complaints they had about the legislation. I wanted to note something I thought was pretty good. About the processes about to make complainants aware of their progress of the complaint. I think is good. More open communication. I know Ms. Levin, you spoke of communication. Having more open communication, clear, consistent communication is a good thing, especially if you're not sure where in your process the complaint is, so people aren't just kind of like left in the dark wondering. I think that's good. One thing that I was concerned about was the monthly meeting requirements. Seems to be removed. To my understanding, that CPCRB is required to meet at least once a month. And my concern is that if that's removed, and they aren't required to meet once a month, then what's the standard for how often they meet? If there are then complaints that are out there and they're not meeting once a month, or they don't meet for 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, complaints go unanswered. Is there any accountability for that? Is there anybody to check in and say, hey, this is going, is anybody checking to see it that that things are being responded to or being addressed? So that's the main thing I wanted to bring up. Again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate everyone's effort. I know it's late, and going to these public hearings takes time out of your day. I know everybody has their own individual lives, but I appreciate that people take this seriously, and I appreciate that every single person involved in this process, every face that I see here, and everyone that has spoken, a part of this process, because they have a personal integrity to themselves, that they believe in Ossining, and they believe in their that they're doing their best to improve the status of how Ossining works. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Sure, thank you. Keto Gray, right? Did I
That's
get
my
that
name.
right?
You
Yeah,
did.
and could you tell me, Village of Ossining, town outside of Ossining?
I live here in Ossining. I'm on Gates Ave.
Great. Oh, that's great. Thank you. I
Yep.
take note of that. Thank you for commentary. We're early in the night. We usually, we're happy. We do these jobs because we actually like the public and we like hearing from the public. So no rush. The staff, different story. But we're happy to be here. We're always happy to hear from the public, whether it's through these kind of meetings or when we see them at First Village or Acme or any other places that we see people. So thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope you join us again on this matter and other matters as well. I'm doing a little bit of tap dancing, although I genuinely am grateful that you're
Mayor?
here, because I'm giving time for hands. Yes?
We do have 3 questions in the chat. If you'd like me to ask them, I know that you may not want to answer them right now, but they are questions that can be read into the record.
Yeah, I'll read them into the record.
Okay, no
And
problem.
they're not actually, there's only one question mark, but I'll read them. Jermaine Smith, 8:05 p.m. The CPCRP should have the same access to attorneys as the board of the village, yet they have requirements of training. So they have been assigned a full-time attorney. That has actually been discussed in the budget meetings to answer that one, because that's just straightforward. They do have, they have our corporation counsel or his designee. There are a few other committees that have either staff members, professional staff, and or attorneys, depending on what is needed. Should any of the work out of the police bill be highlighted in our messaging? I don't know what that means, but I'll read it into the record. What is the status of the EO 203 civilian board? I can answer that at the end as well. Okay, so I read that into the minutes so that it's on the video. Got it. Okay, gonna give another minute. I don't see any more questions.
No one else has their hands raised, Mayor.
I know, giving everybody another minute or so, just in case they're struggling with a phone or something. Okay, okie dokie. So I am going to ask Trustee Lopez, did you want to say a word, or do we want to have Stuart just talks? I have a couple of things I think need some clarification or information. What would you like to do?
I'm happy to go, and
Okay.
then I'll tap in Stuart. So I'll start with a quick introduction, and then I'll address some points that folks have made. So first, I want to give thanks to all of the members of the public that have come to speak. We're here week in, week out, and we know that not every topic brings out the people. And so anytime that we have community engagement, I think it's a good thing because we get to hear from the public. And that's why we're all here, in order to serve the community. I think that's a great thing. Number two is I think it's important to name the difference between absolute terms and relative terms. In absolute terms, the place where Ossining is with its police department, its CPCRB, it's quite strong, right? We have a police department that has a great record of serving the community, a CPCRB that has existed for many years, that has functioned to be able to work with the police in order to hold investigations accountable for being strong. I think all that is good. Then there is relative. So a lot of the comments that we've heard today have been constructive feedback around the changes to the CPCRB through local law 13. And it makes sense. Not a lot of folks are dialing in to say, I love it. Thanks for passing the law as is. No changes. We don't hear a lot of that. Typically, it's you're dialing in because you've got some kind of feeling about something. And so it can make it feel like, man, what's wrong with this law that we're looking to pass where there are so many constructive pieces of feedback? I just want to balance that with the reality that it's reflecting the hard work that the working committee did back in late last year, early this year, in order to determine what are the best ways to strengthen the CPCRB. And we're passing all of those plus some extras that the BOT feels would also strengthen the CPCRB. So in relative terms, we're stronger than we were. In absolute terms, we have the strongest police department and CPCRB, definitely in the county, probably in the state, I'd argue in the country. Somebody prove me wrong. Okay, so let's get back to some of the comments people have made. Daria mentioned as one of the first people to speak around a topic that I think is worthy of underscoring, which is this language of indirect contact. So the idea here is if a complainant reaches out to a member of the CPCRB, then that's problematic. And naming that is problematic if the complainant reaches out directly by calling them up and saying, hey, I have some comments for you, going to their house, texting them, whatever. But also indirectly, if they were to talk to someone and say, hey, will you speak to this member of the CPCRB for me? Let them know, blah, 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 blah. That's also problematic. That's different in direct contact from incidental contact, or in a small community. If someone's at Shop and Stop at the deli counter and they're a member of the CPCRB and a complainant comes up to them and talks to them, that's incidental. What they say in return then is where it comes down. If they say, I can't comment on anything having to do with the CPCRB, that's the only response. And in that case, there would be absolutely no issue. But if it were an incidental kind of thing, you're online at the supermarket and somebody comes up to you and says something, and then you comment then as a member of the CPCRB, that's problematic. That's what we're trying to get at. And so there is an argument for clarifying incidental versus indirect contact. And that's something that we may want to consider. That may be a change. I could be convinced to include something like that. Next was Leah, talking about the language about false complaints being intimidating. This is a place where reasonable people can disagree, I believe, where to me it's subjective what one considers intimidating, and that legal language may be considered intimidating. The way that I read it, on balance, if you are submitting a complaint, if you've gotten to the point where an incident happened with the police, you've gone to the clerk's office, the police station, you've downloaded it from the website, the complaint form. You've written out your complaint. You've submitted your complaint to either the police department or the corporation counsel or the clerk. Someone that's gone through all of those steps, the likelihood that they'll say, I'm not going to submit the complaint because this language around, what is this? Submitting a false complaint, it's too intimidating. I'm not going to do it. Now, if after we pass this legislation, we start to get community feedback that says, hey, I would have submitted a complaint, but I was intimidated by the language that was there. We can consider that. We can go, you know what? We're seeing some real evidence that perhaps this is problematic. Let's make this change. But as far as I see it, the benefit of having it be extremely specific, explicit, and clear that false statements would result in whatever the language exactly says from the penal code, as opposed to an interpretation of that, which could be considered by some as too harsh, by others, too gentle. Just using the legal language is from my summation, cleanest. But I get it. I'll move very quickly through these other comments. The idea of appointing the chair instead of having the CPC elect the chair. From the way that we see it as a board, this is a decision that we're looking to put the CPC in RB in line with other committees, except for the Board of Ethics, which we have no availability to attend any meetings of theirs as members of the BOT. The BOT can attend any meeting from any committee, except the CPCRB where they're reviewing a complaint. So any meeting of the CPCRB that has existed, particularly in the last year, as I've been liaison, that I've been invited to, I've gone to. As a member of the CPCRB and as a liaison, I go and I get the opportunity to engage with the CPCRB. So it's not the Board of Ethics. We can go to those meetings, and making the CPCRB be in line with all the other committees where either the village manager or the BOT is appointing who the chair is. To me, as the elected member of this body, which the members of the public, if they are unhappy with, they can unelect me during the next election or whatever, I can be held accountable. It's different than if a board is selecting their own chair, because they're the ones who are making that decision. That's my perspective on it, that I believe that this puts more onus on us, more responsibility as elected people to choose people that we feel are going to best serve the community, and people can hold us accountable electorally. But again, people can disagree with that, and I think that that's legit. If you disagree with that and you think that the body should choose their own chair, okay, I get that. Wrapping up, the point that Jermaine made around the BOT not having to do the police training, to me, is such a good point. I've actually not heard it yet as part of all of these conversations, and I think that there are a total number of 0 people that would feel like that's a bad idea. One of the things that I learned first getting elected into a public office, and this is true basically from village trustee to president of the United States, you don't get elected and then go through training. You get elected and then you start doing the job immediately. There's just an expectation that you know what you're supposed to do. I would love nothing more than training on police issues, on all these other issues, land use issues. I think that would be super, super, super helpful. Nevertheless, it's not the world that we live in at this point. That's just not how it's structured. But I think there's an appetite to learn more. So we don't have to codify it necessarily, but I would love for the BOT to get more training on all these issues that we have in front of us. I think that's a very smart thing. On Jennifer and the last 2 points. On Jennifer's point around the BOT not doing enough marketing, I echo what the mayor said, where reasonable people can disagree in that if this is a topic that you in particular care about, I understand why you may think that it merits extra marketing. The same is true for people that care about land use issues or the environment or whatever other issues are in front of us every 2 weeks, basically, in legislative meetings. They matter to some people and they may want more public input. And we have to balance, how can we get the word out for these meetings and on these topics in a way that's going to be consistent and sustainable and have people tune in and not completely tune out. So I think that reasonable people can disagree there. We didn't do enough marketing. I think that one thing that this does underscore is the power of the community doing their own marketing around issues that they care about. I saw online specifically language around inviting people to come here. I would do nothing but encourage more of that. If more people were advertising our meetings and opportunities to participate in our process, I think that's amazing. More power to you. Please do more. It's that JFK line, ask what you can do for the Village of Ossining, not what the Village of Ossining can do for you. He said something like that. And finally, Quito made a great point here, or asking this question: is it a problem if there's language around them not meeting more than once a month? This is where the government weirdness can step in. If there's language that says you have to meet every month, the reality is that there are some months where there's nothing going on. And between the chair, the vice chair, communicating electronically or in other ways with the rest of the CPCRB and the Corporation Council, they go, hey, there's nothing on the agenda. Should we not meet? Wait, we have to get together for 2 minutes on a Zoom call or in person in order to have a meeting to say there's nothing on the agenda, because that's what the law says. It's a silly law. We have to do it. It's what it would lead to. To me, these are adults. And if they choose not to meet, then they choose not to meet. The backstop is us as the BOT to say, hey, you're never meeting. What's the deal? But we can deal with it there. I don't think we need to be so prescriptive. I appreciate you sitting through that long laundry list, but I wanted to make sure that I touched on some of those topics. That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other trustees can also respond, but Stuart, are there comments for clarification that you would like to have? I think that Trustee Lopez did talk about number of meetings. I discussed that we publicly notice. I'm just trying to see if there were any pieces that you want to clarify of some of the comments that were made.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Trustee Lopez, and thank you to all the folks who commented tonight. Just a few things, just to go back. Ms. Gregg had raised the question as to whether the CPCRB would get the original complaint. It has always been the practice and would continue to be the practice that the CPCRB will always see the complaint that is filed by the complainant, always, and under all circumstances. That would not change under any revision that is being proposed here. Trustee Lopez has already talked about the issue of indirect contact, which, as I said, is not inadvertent contact, where indirect comes in. Just looking at a few of the other things here. One thing I think may be confusing people, and if it is, hopefully this will clarify it. When a person is selected to the CPCRB, they have a 2-year term. As chair, they would have a 1-year term as chair, but they have a 2-year term on the CPCRB. The other point that was raised, I think one of the speakers, and I think it was Ms. Stillman, asked, why is there a limit on the number of consecutive terms? One point to make is, I believe it was in 2018, this board adopted Chapter 6 of the code, which basically set term limits for all the different boards. And the idea of 4 consecutive 2-year terms, if you have a 2-year board, was one of those. And this is a 2-year term. So that's where the consecutive is. Much of the language that is in the code dealing with term limits and attendance requirements comes out of that Chapter 6. It's again a method of having consistency across the board with regard to all the different boards. One thing I just wanted to correct that Ms. Cabrera said, the Board of Ethics actually does not choose its own chair. the chair of the Board of Ethics is the senior attorney member on the board. And that's basically those are people appointed by the Board of Trustees, but it is the person who is senior in terms of tenure on that board is actually the chair with regard to that. Trustee Lopez responded to Mr. Gray's comment.
Stuart, I'm sorry also to just interject because I was involved in setting up the Board of Ethics along with one of my colleagues. That specific board, it's also only an attorney that can be a chair. There are other members and they cannot be. And so it's the longest standing, it's a rotation.
Right.
It's an automatic rotation and the next person always knows that they're up next.
Right. With regard to Mr. Gray's comment, and I think Trustee Lopez dealt with this, the idea of a monthly meeting, the words monthly was taken out. What was added in is that meetings will be called at the call of the chair on 10 days notice. There can also be emergency meetings that have to be called. To respond to one of Mr. Gray's concerns, because it was a concern early on with the CPCRB, is that months or many months would go without meetings, is that one, the Corporation Counsel will be will assist the chair and vice chair. If complaints are in, there will be a meeting with regard to that complaint. So that's not going to be held. The only time that might happen if it's held is if there is a request from the department, from the police department, for additional time to conduct an investigation. And even under that circumstance, I would see that there would be a meeting just to make the board members aware of that. It was also discussed, in fact, at last night's CPCRB meeting, that a lot of the meetings, even if there's no complaint, will probably be held for training purposes. No better time than to do it at those times. So, but again, it will be up to the chair and or vice chair with the Corporation Counsel to decide, when the next meeting should be held, what the agenda should be, and how that meeting, should be done. I know a lot was mentioned, Mayor, about training. I should point out two things. One, the working committee and the board wanted the training requirements. That was something that was there. What was changed was that instead of the vast, I think maybe 14 or 15 different topics that would have to be completed before a member could in fact even hear a case, that was basically cut down to 6. And that has to be done within a certain period of time. And then all the other topics can be done over time after that. But the training was considered significant. In fact, last night, some of the CPCRB members noted that the code continues to have the language that the CPCRB members should have contact with line officers, should be able to ride with officers upon approval of the chief. All that is there, and I know at least last night, many of the members indicated they would be very much interested in doing that once we get past COVID and once we get all that taken care of. I mentioned about the term limits, and Mr. Smith was correct that the final decisions with regard to potential disciplinary matters are made by the Board of Trustees. He did, however, say that the CPCRB does not see recorded material. That is inaccurate. They have seen such material. They have certainly sat through complaints where body camera photos and images were shown for a lengthy period of times as part of the investigation. Mr. Smith also inquired about the fact that the language that the chief would not be a member was taken out. That was taken out because it's frankly surplus language. The chief is either going to conduct the investigation or going to be directly involved in whether or not there is a disciplinary determination. So he would not be a member. The chief is appointing 2 OPD members to serve as non-voting members of the CPCRB, but the chief would not himself or herself be a member of that particular board. Let me just see. There are, and one of the things that Ms. Nelson said is that it may be tough to fill positions. I should point out that as we have with other boards. If it turns out that a member has completed their term and they are, in a sense, the phrase being used, term limited, but the Board of Trustees is unable to find someone else to come in, the board has the option of waiving the term limit requirement if that member wants to continue to serve, so that we can have those members there. That's particularly important with these boards when you have 5, but there is also the advantage to the CPCRB that it will have 2 alternate members who are there to participate in all proceedings up until the time of basically voting, similar to an alternate juror, for that. I think, Mayor, I have gone over the comments that were made tonight, so that's it for me.
Thank you, Stuart. I'm going to open it up in case it's not obligatory. It's a hearing, but if anybody else, any of my fellow trustees have something to say, and I will also say that the email sent us in writing, if we miss something and there is an opportunity to respond or clarify or answer some questions, we will do so. Any trustees have any comments on this particular piece of business for the evening? No from Annie.
I would just like to say
Oh,
thank you to
go.
those who came. We haven't had this many folks, attendees in a long time. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. We'll keep talking, I guess. I don't know.
I appreciate you saying that, Dana, because we actually, and you'll find that many people that run for office, we actually very much enjoy, having the public come to our meetings and have input on the many topics that we have. So please join us for more.
I thought folks had some good points too.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely stuff to think about. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Giving another minute or so. Is there anybody else here in the gallery, in the panelists? I don't need to call everybody out by name. That has any comments, something we missed? Anybody? Okay. I see no hands. I see nobody from the gallery raising their hand to speak. Okie dokie. All right. We are ready to move on with the agenda. Martha?
Mayor, if I might, is it the board's option to close the public hearing, adjourn the public hearing? That has to be determined before we can go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just shut the agenda off by mistake. Sorry about that, because I usually write these little things for myself. There we go. Okay, so we opened. You're asking if we want to close the public hearing, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me bring that out to the board. Are we closing the public hearing on 13-2021?
Mayor, I would like to suggest that we actually keep it open. I would
Okay.
like to have an adjournment.
So moved.
I
Well,
agree.
Can we agree that are we talking to adjourn it till December 1st?
Right.
That
let me
is your
look at the
next
calendar.
meeting. You have to have a date certain to adjourn it to. Otherwise, you have to renotice it.
Okay,
I'll be okay to adjourn until December 1st.
I agree.
okay. All righty. So let me see something here. Okay, so folks, I'm not, the public hearing is not designed in a way to go into then written questions. If you want to say something, everybody gets 4 minutes. Jamie, make copies of the questions if you can, and we will put that into the minutes and we will have records and we can respond to people of questions that we can respond to. Some of them are comments, some of them are questions. And because hearing that we're going to have to vote to extend, I think, Manny, you brought it up. So you want to do it till 2 weeks from now?
Yes, Mayor. Please.
Is that a problem with all the budget stuff, Karen?
No, Mayor.
Okay.
I don't believe we have an issue with that.
with anything. Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. So yes, let's put the date for 2 more weeks. That gives people an opportunity to study things more, ask more questions, bring some more thoughts to the table that we can look at. So that's fine with me. Do we have a vote on this? Stuart?
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to point something out to the board procedurally, because it's important. It is something I actually mentioned to the CPCRB last night. The local law 13 that is before the board now, that is the local law that the board would be voting on. If the board is inclined to make changes in the local law would have to go back.
Right.
It would have to be revised. You'd have to notice a new public hearing and start again. So if the idea, I just want the board members to all understand that's where we are. But if they want to adjourn to 2 weeks, that's absolutely fine. I think there's been a motion in a second.
So I would like to do that. I think that is the intention that was brought up by the trees. I do want the public to note that this law and many of the things, not everybody, many of you started by saying a lot of it is really good. What I think Stuart Kahan is saying, the good and what you may or may not think is so good all gets delayed because the entire law sits as one piece. We will then have to go back and make some changes or not, depending on what our conversations are, what we choose to do. And that a lot of pieces of this law is actually part of requests made through the plan that was submitted. But just to be clear, not that we need to change this, because I think that Deputy Mayor Quesada is very much aware that when you take a law and you extend the public hearing, that it puts it back in the queue. If we make changes, it puts it back in the queue until we get the legislation to read the way we all agree on it. Then we vote on it. We don't vote on sentences. We vote on the whole piece. Having said that, so that everybody understands, it means the good and the bad gets delayed. However you defined good and bad. So Manny, you are putting it for an adjournment for 2 more weeks to keep the public session open. I'm saying it wrong, sorry.
So is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing on local law 13, 2021 to December 1, 2021?
So moved.
Somebody second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you all. So we may have more discussions and we may change some things or not change them and go back to the drawing board on it. And we have lots to work with. Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Quesada. We are moving on to the Village of Ossining.
The Village of Ossining's 22 budget, the public hearing. Again, if you would like to make a comment, please click on your electronic hand. And again, we're limiting comments to 4 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Martha. I stopped myself in the middle, if you noted. Okay. So this is the biggest thing that the village board does is vote on the budget. And we've said this before, every mayor says this exact same sentence. There are only 5 people in the community that can vote and approve a budget. The budget drives all the initiatives that we do for the upcoming year. There's a proposed budget, and then we vote, and what we vote on becomes the actual budget. This is the part where the proposed budget has been discussed. I believe that's been 6 meetings with the board, one of which was a full day. Am I right? 6, 7, 5, something like that. Half a dozen. And they're all recorded. They're all available for public to look at, to hear, to ask, if they need a copy, it's on the website, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all been out there, and we do this every year. So people who live in this community know every single year there's a law about when it has to get done, when it gets signed, when it gets submitted. It is a lot of work, especially in challenging times. So I'm also saying all of this to give people an opportunity to raise their hand if they're trying to sort of fumble through and say, hey, let me think about that for a minute. So big budget. Is there anybody in the public that would like to raise their hand, or did anybody come here tonight to comment on the 2022 Village of Ossining budget? I'm seeing no hands. Okay. It's anticlimactic. I'm sorry, Karen and Dale. It's a big deal budget. I think it had a lot of big programs, big capital projects, multi-year budgets. I did put in the mayor's note. I was starting to do the bullets, affordable housing, big project, environment, big investment. We delineated out police reform to make sure that there is budget, because the chief had said a lot of the wants and the wishes cost money and required dedicated time. So the board better pass a budget and make sure there's enough money for it. So we asked for that to be done. That was done, and it's delineated. We've got, I'm going through parks, community center, firehouses, consulting work, and the beginning of implementation on Route 9, which splits our village up physically, emotionally, socially, and every other way. It's been driving me crazy, and mayors before, well, the mayor before me, not mayors, but mayor before me. And what it does, my community center is something, and the parks are super important to almost every member of this community. And we are moving to being electric or hybrid in our vehicles and fleets. All great things. I'm just putting in my 2 cents worth because I have 5 minutes, and I also feel like some drum roll should be happening. But we're on Zoom, so I can't do any drum rolling. Anyway, I wanted to put that in. Stuart, next step with this? Anybody else have any comments on the budget besides a big thank you to the staff, which we did at the work sessions? But a big thank you again to everybody, every department head and every group of people, the fire chiefs, the fire chiefs, the police chief, the department heads, the finance department, who probably loses a lot of sleep. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out for all of the hard work, and the attorney who looks at everything twice and 3 times. Any comments?
I just have a quick thank you for Karen and Maddie and Dale and Stuart and the staff that helped to put this together, because there are so many components to it. We've spent, I don't know, it was what, an 8-hour day, a 3-hour day. I've some 15 plus hours going through these budgets, and that was just showtime. That doesn't even account for all the work that went into actually creating the budgets and making sure that what we were looking at was correct and cogent and aligned with the values that we have stated and priorities that we've stated. So next year we have a lot to look forward to in terms of big things, capital projects, new water treatment plant, all of that, and the continuation of some great things like the kiosk at the waterfront and all of the events that we put on and that are happening in the community. All of that is facilitated by what we name in the budget. And I'm really excited that this sets us up for next year. And finally, that we are being good stewards of the resources that we have in front of us, given to us, and trusted to us by the public. That's a serious responsibility. Then the fact that not every municipality, even in our own county, can say that they consistently are managing the public's resources responsibly on a consistent basis. Like that's a big deal. I appreciate your competence. I appreciate your alignment with what our values are to serve the community. And I'm excited for passing this budget and what it brings for next year.
Anybody else? Thank you, Omar. Very much appreciate it. Any other comments? We've commented a lot about it for people that follow us, but I just want to give an opportunity
Well,
here.
it
in
was
case
my
anybody
first budget. You know, you never forget your first budget, and I never will. And, you know, one thing that we do is we take it very seriously. We take spending the money the taxpayers give to the village very seriously. And everything we do will hopefully affect as many people as possible. in a good way. And, you know, I think that that's, you know, that's gratifying and so many big numbers. But Omar knows I have math anxiety. However, I really thank the staff for making it very easy to understand, very clear. I'm excited to get going on some of this stuff and to continue doing some of this. So thanks.
Thank you, Dana. And yes, it is your first one, right? I was in office for about a week when I did the budget. My head was spinning, and it was spinning a year later. It still spins when I look at the portfolio, but it spins a little bit less. Congratulations, Dana. Anybody else?
If I may, Mayor, please.
What number is it for you, by the way? I'm just curious.
My first one. It feels like the first time. Every year feels like the first time. And every time is an exciting time. Obviously, I definitely want to thank Del and her staff, Liz, Maddie, Karen, everybody pretty much, everybody that is part of the village, you know, department heads. You know, it was essential for us to go through this budget. Without that help is a little bit more complex for us. You know, we say we spent 20 hours of our lives. In reality, is the staff had spent months working to get to the level that, you know, it was for us to review their budget. So I really thank them for all the hard work, and especially Del. I know Del and Liz, they've been working. They work pretty much. They're gonna start working again on January 1st. You know, to amend the budget for 2021. For the first quarter, there's a lot of bills coming in. I know that because I signed the vouchers or have reviewed the vouchers. So the budget process never stops. You know, so you know, I want to thank them for all the hard work that they do every day, not just now, but every day. So I'm happy to say that we actually, you know, we have another year where we are keeping. I'm going to leave that part to the mayor.
Yes, that was my exclamation. Don't steal the thunder.
I'm very happy with this budget. You know, it's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of capital projects that I think people should pay attention to it. There's a lot of major infrastructure that we are working on it, you know, for the next year, and some of them for the next three years, you know, depending how you know, some of them will come up in a budget portion, or at least on the proposals when we go out for bid. But it's very exciting. Again, it always feels like the first time, Mayor. So
okay, Bob, you good or you're good? Okay. Wait, did I hit everybody? I got everybody. So I do want to say, and I see that former Mayor Victoria Garrity joined us. I do have to say I lack the passion about the budget. She used to practically jump up and down. She very much enjoyed looking line item by line item. Very, very few mayors, I have to tell you, in my opinion, sit there and look at every single line item. We do the same as a group. So it's very much appreciated, but it is a 0% rate increase for the village. The village is a small part of the taxes the taxpayers pay. I believe the school tax is the highest one by far, but we do our share. It is the number one issue for most of our constituents, is how high the taxes are in Ossining. And so we try to do our part to deliver great services, clean water, paved roads as much as we can, the ones we control and own, good parks, great waterfront stuff, housing, youth bureaus coming in, all the stuff that people use in their everyday life. But the number one issue for most people is actually high taxes, both in Westchester County, usually the highest tax county in the United States, but also in Ossining. So we are doing our share. Most that we can get for everybody. I do want to also congratulate the entire staff. This is not sexy stuff, but I think that this particular group in this year has really gone out and acquired some of the biggest and most grants that we have seen in a long time. That helps in the fact that you don't have to collect the money in revenues from taxation, but that you get it from other parts of governments. And that takes a lot of work, and that helps us in our everyday lives. I thank everybody. Yay. And I thank people for coming tonight as well to, if you're here also to hear more about the budget. Thank you for joining us. Stuart, next steps?
Motion to close the public hearing with regard to the Village of Ossaning's 2022 budget.
So moved.
Somebody-
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Public hearing is closed.
Thank you all. From here, we take it to the next step of moving the budget forward.
Okay, we are going on to mayors and trustees announcements.
Okay. Trustees, anybody have announcements? I'm going to give Karen the opportunity to talk about a grant that we just got that is just yet one more grant, and that's what reminded me. Next week is Thanksgiving. Reminder that I just want to let people know that the trustees said they didn't have any announcements, but if you guys change your mind, just let me know.
Wait, can I go, Rika?
Oh, please. I thought that there weren't any. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just want to give a quick shout out to Joe Agostenelli, because he sent us a list of all the businesses in Ossining. And I put it out there on social media. It's a list of 377 businesses. And it's like, that's amazing. There are so many businesses here in our community. And it's just a great challenge to go out and visit as many of them as you can. And so check out my Facebook page for that full list. And it has addresses. And thank you, Joe, for putting that together.
Thank you for that, Omar. If you don't mind, if I could just add to that. Some of them are retailers, some of them are services, use all of them. But and I'm glad you pointed that out. And Jamie, my friend, when is Shop Small? What's the date?
The
Putting you
official
on the
date-
spot because I don't have it in
No,
front of me.
that's okay. The official date is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And, but in Ossining, we're going to celebrate it the entire holiday season. Shop Small.
Right. So there are a lot of events. We'll talk more about it. Please be on the lookout. There are different social media things. And it was said before, good, bad, and different. Honestly, use social media to talk about what's being done on our Wednesdays, please. About everything that we do, that it would be helpful to get the word out about all types of issues, initiatives, actions, etc. Especially about shopping local. So eat, drink, be merry, go back, buy some toys, do the whole thing. So thank you, Omar Lopez, for bringing that to our attention. We'll do more with that. I was going to talk about Thanksgiving, just a reminder, not that anybody would miss it, that the village actually is closed both, I believe, Thursday and that Friday. So just letting folks know that that is happening for those of you that don't. And I don't have a whole lot of other messages that I don't put in my mayor's notes, so we're going to move the meeting on.
Okay, so we're going to have our administrative report from Village Manager Karen DeTore.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I do want to also echo thanks to the staff who worked on the budget. It was a lot of hard work. I think that the board acknowledged everyone sufficiently, but I also want to acknowledge the hard work that the board put into the budget and the time that they took as well. It really does take a village to get this budget out. So thank you all. We have a lot of things going on in the greening of Ossining, if you will. So we did get a grant, we'll get to that, but there's also some other things that have come up. In 2019, and I believe this was right before I started, the village responded to a query from the state about interest in technical support for maintaining water quality and really ensuring that drinking water is protected quality. We're looking at watersheds, etc. So the village was selected to participate in the Drinking Water Source Protection Program, also known as the DWSP2. And this is a state-run voluntary program. Again, it provides technical support to municipalities, and we're one of the fortunate municipalities who were chosen to participate in this. So in addition to technical support, we'll be working with stakeholders from all the communities surrounding the Indian Brook Reservoir rather. And that would include the town of Newcastle and the town of Cortland and the town of Ossining. And we'll be over the course of the next year working with technical experts from the DEC as well as from H2M, which is an engineering firm that specializes in a lot of different water initiatives. So we're really happy to be part of that. I think it's going to be a really great opportunity, particularly dovetailing with the new plant construction, because it'll really give us a lot of insight into ways that working with the new plant and going forward to ensure our water source is really maintained as best as can be. Not only, we're also doing an overlay zone. I'm sorry, somebody's distracting me over here. So I apologize. We're also working on an overlay zone plan with other municipalities to make sure that future development is considered carefully in the watershed. Now we can look at existing issues too. So this is a really good opportunity to ensure the purity and cleanliness of our water as we embark on a pretty intense capital project to ensure quality drinking water and capacity for the future. So we're really happy about that. We do have some other things on the greening front too, and I want to turn it over to Assistant Village Manager Maddie Zachacz to discuss some of the things she's been working on.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Good evening.
Before you
board.
even start, are we the greenest village in the country yet or not?
I mean,
We're
we're
getting
making
very
fast
close.
progress.
Because I'm going to be held to that. So
I certainly believe that we'll get there.
okay.
So the first thing that I wanted to bring up is that earlier today, Village Engineer Paul Fraioli, along with Karen, joined me for a meeting with some folks from NYPA and a variety of solar panel installation companies. The village, I think back in 2020, had agreed to be part of NYPA's RFP for municipally owned sites to do community solar. And there were 2 sites that were definitely identified within the village on municipally owned sites. So we got to meet with 2 different companies, one to look at the roof at the operations center out on 9A, and then one to look at a canopy system for the Ossining train station. So if we decide to go forward, we can do one, both, or neither. And we also can explore some other sites. Basically, this would be a no-cost project for the village. The company would basically be leasing the roof space or the parking lot in some regards from us. And we would be receiving revenue from the lease, and they would be receiving revenue from the power that was created off of the panels. And the best thing about it is that our community members would get a chance to buy into the solar panel energy creation system, which would get them as much as a 10% discount on their Con Ed bill, which would be outstanding. So we're looking forward to learning a little bit more about that. Former Mayor of Croton, Leo Wegman, is on the board of Sustainable Westchester. He offered us a tour at a similar facility in Croton. So if anyone is interested in joining, we'll let you know when that is.
Maddie, if I may interject, I believe that White Plains off of Gedney Road in their park recently put something up. I don't know if I ever sent you in Brooklyn, where they're developing Gowanus through state funding and city funding. It's a tens of millions of dollars of rebuilding over there. Without being political about whether they should be doing that or not doing that, the Costco in that area actually put up an entire section of a canopy that looked really cool to me. It was built a little differently because it not only is about the solar, but it's about the fact that in the winter, it keeps the snow off cars, and it keeps the pavement, the life of the pavement, like life of roofs that have solar, are supposed to extend it says that it doubles the life. Even if it doesn't double, it's still pretty damn impressive. So if you need places to go where it's different, let me know, because I've actually compiled a little list as I travel around to see what others are doing. So, and I don't remember, Karen, if Glen Cove did it in that development that we had looked at, if there was any solar, or whether they didn't have it, right, even though they had redone all the parking. Okay.
I don't think they had a canopy.
There's
No.
somewhere in the land, I can look them up. But anyway, those are two examples of structures, but there are many of them. But White Plains would be an easy one on Gedney to go look at.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. We learned an awful lot about White Plains portfolio on one of the calls today. I think they did 10 installations on municipal property over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So in that same vein, I've been joined by one of our EAC members and also Victoria Caffarelli from the town of Ossining. We are two of, I believe, 16 communities participating in the flagship program through Scenic Hudson and Clearwater that is called the Municipal Solar Mapping Project. And basically we're all going back to school and learning a little bit about solar energy and all the different types of panels that are available, what the terminology is, and then also how to use a variety of GIS, graphic information systems layers to see where solar farms would be appropriate in our community to prevent environmental damage while also improving environmental justice scores. So the next class is tomorrow. We've got a couple more weeks and look forward to reporting back on that. And finally, I don't know if it's me who's going to give the good news about the grant or if I should turn it back over to Karen.
Whatever.
Please go ahead. Please, okay. You're on a roll.
So very quickly, the village has been working on a project this entire year of documenting past environmental actions through NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities program. And I am pleased to announce that today we got notification that we've received yet another action grant. This one is for $10,000. So you might remember we got one a couple months ago for $5,000, which the community told us they would like us to use for bike racks. So we have a little bit of information about how to go forward with that. We then got another $5,000. So now we have $15,000 outstanding that we can use on environmental initiatives. And so we will be working over the next couple months to come up with some projects for that. It's really very exciting because, like I said, we're documenting past actions and getting points for stuff that, we were, at the forefront many years ago, doing a lot of the things that communities around the state are just waking up to now. But I want to give a particular shout out to Joe Agostenelli and his staff. They are the ones who actually put us over the edge for this grant award by doing energy code staff training. So that was very exciting. Our coordinator is very proud of us and very excited to find out from Joe and team what they've learned and put it into use for our residents. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And the two other items that we want to note is that we are getting ready for the holidays. And we are slowly trying to return to our pre-pandemic days. We will be having menorah lighting on December 2nd, Thursday, December 2nd, in Market Square. And this will be a smaller event than typical. We're not going to be serving food, but we will be doing that in person. And then on Friday, December 3rd, I believe I have the right dates here, we will be having Santa Claus coming and the tree lighting. And that will be at 6:30. The menorah lighting's at 5 o'clock on Thursday. The second Santa Claus and the tree lighting are at 6:30 on Friday 3rd. And this year, we're not going to hand out the usual cookies and hot chocolate, but Santa Claus will be available to have, and you can get your photo taken with him, and he will be in a giant snow globe so that you can get your photo taken safely. So we're kind of excited about the innovative ways our recreation department and our community keep bringing joy back to us in safe and more socially distant ways, but also ways that are fun. So just wanted to note that we are getting back on track.
Okay. Martha?
Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Martha. Good evening again, Mayor and members of the board. Next Tuesday, the 23rd, is a planning board meeting. agendas and materials are all online. Because the planning board agenda has become chock full of applications and lengthy meetings, there will be a second planning board meeting on December 2nd, which folks should know about. So if you're interested in seeing what is going on in terms of development before the planning board, November 23rd, and then on December 2nd, will be 2 planning board meetings. There are many, many applications before the board, both new and continuing. And so please feel free, as I said, you can go to the agenda, see all the items, see everything that has been filed with regard to all those different applications, and may answer some of your questions about some of the different projects that are going on around the village. We have been notified by the Army Corps of Engineers that they are considering the permit with regard to the Hidden Cove project. A last day for comments with regard to the permit application is, I believe, December, I think it's December 6th. The notice of the public notice has been sent to all of our land use boards. That includes historic preservation and environmental conservation. So if those boards wish to make any comments, they are welcome to, as is the public, because in fact, the way we found out about this initially was from a comment by a member of the public. And if anyone wants to get the link with regard to the public notice, you can contact my office, Office of Corporation Counsel. You can send me an email at kahan@villageofossining.org, and I'll be more than happy to provide you with the link so that you can see the announcement, see the permit application, and if you wish to make any comments to the Army Corps of Engineers, please feel free to do so. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, board members.
Thank you. Chief Sylvester.
Good evening. A couple things from the police department. From the enforcement side of things, yesterday you may have seen in the news, we've discussed this over the course of the last year and a half or so. Sentencing for Robert McCallion in the attempted murder as a hate crime case from 2000, I believe it was early 2020 in the Avalon complex, where a 15-year-old victim, 15 years he was sentenced to, teenage victim was attacked, stabbed, and brutally beaten. Something that I've noticed in my career in law enforcement is that while most of our community will see this as closing the book on this case, for the victim, their family, those close to them, this is merely a milestone. And oftentimes what's not seen is that the healing process may take a lifetime. So I do want to commend the outstanding work of the patrol officers that responded there to a dangerous and violent scene in the very early stages of COVID, when there was a great deal of uncertainty. The quick actions of Detectives Chavez and Hutchins in investigating this and bringing this case to a closure. Still, our thoughts are with that victim, because she has a long way to go, and she's going to need an incredible amount of support. Right now, we give her our privacy, but we've offered to her family, if there's anything that we can do going forward, we'd remain connected with her. Last Thursday night, late at night, we received notification from the school district of a threat by a Snapchat to our schools. Fantastic work there by Lieutenant Zimmerman and Detective Armstrong, jumping in after midnight and being able to close the case and nearly in time to keep school going. Not always possible, but resulted in our school district, at least the high school, going remote for one day. Able to close that case within 24 hours, though, and determined that it was a post from someone not related to our school district, and in fact, a juvenile from another county. So being handled as a juvenile, so there won't be too much news on that from here going forward. But safe to say that our schools are safe, our students are protected, and it's a great example of the tremendous partnership we have with Dr. Sanchez, Mr. Hancock, and all of the administrators in the school district. Not the case for every school district. Really great stuff that we have here in Ossining. We're proud to have them as our partners. In personnel, tomorrow we'll have Lieutenant Jim Montague will be retiring at 3 p.m. He will walk out the back door with probably a lot of noise, since he is a motorcycle officer. He's been here since 1994. He served as a police officer in our community policing unit, promoted to sergeant in 2003, where he supervised our records division and was absolutely instrumental in building out our network infrastructure and increasing our use of technology here in the department. Promoted to lieutenant in 2008. He's been a patrol lieutenant, and he's implemented a lot of our school safety coordination strategies with the school district, supervised our Marine unit and our motorcycle unit. So somebody who's been deeply involved in our department and our community for many, many years, so he'll be missed. On Friday, we will present Sergeant Brendan Donahue to the board for promotion to lieutenant. So early morning, I understand we'll have a special meeting for that one. Looking forward to that. And he will remain in support services once that promotion is voted on by the board. On Friday, we'll be meeting with the
Excuse me, Chief, for 1 second. Did somebody send the board a time and link for the special meeting?
I believe I did.
Okay.
I'll
Or
I'll
Jamie?
look for it.
Jamie,
Yes.
we talked, you said you were going to do it tomorrow.
Oh, no, not the links to the Zoom don't go out until the day before or the day of usually, but
Okay, I
it's
just
on
need to know what time we're doing this. You
it's
don't have to
8:30
announce it.
a.m. Sure, it's
Okay.
8:30 a.m. on Friday morning.
The public is listening. This is not a public meeting. This is, the board is being presented with a promotion. And we need to approve promotions, hirings, and all sorts of stuff. So because it's a public, I just want to make sure people don't show up or ask where and when it's happening. It's the board is actually voting on, so it's being presented to us at that time.
Promotions must be voted on by resolution of the board because they sit as a board of police commissioners. So that's why I'd said that we're presenting it to the board and
Right.
not I've promoted him. So that's coming up on Friday. Exciting stuff there. Also on Friday, we'll be meeting with the Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health to review RFPs for implementation of the mobile response team. That's been long in the making. Their objective is to have 8 county-wide. As of right now, they're planning on having one here. When asked exactly where here is, they just said Ossining. So I don't think that's been fully fleshed out in terms of where they're planning on going or how they're going to have office space, but it would be great to have them here. We are certainly an area of need for something like that. My one concern that I've shared with them, and I will continue to share, is that our zone will also cover Briarcliff, Croton, and go into Mount Pleasant, where it will encompass the shelter in Valhalla. So some concern that our team would spend a lot of time out of town. But yet to be seen on how that's really going to roll out, but glad that we're being included to review the RFPs, and we'll be there with them every step of the way. Last thing, on Tuesday, we'll partner with the school district in Feeding Westchester for food distribution ahead of Thanksgiving. That'll be from 3:30 to 5 on Everett Avenue between Edward Street and Spring, directly next to Park School, the ordinary spot. So looking forward to seeing lots of people and making sure that every family has a turkey for Thanksgiving. That's all for us tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Very much, lots going on, very much appreciated. My understanding of the mobile unit, and I myself want to contact the county, is that they're doing a pilot first of a series of municipalities. We're on the second rollout of the pilot on those. That's my understanding. I don't know if yours is different.
So we haven't had a lot of conversation with them specific to what they're doing. I understand that they do have at least one team up and running somewhere down county. They are trying to parse this out so that, we're not sharing units with the larger cities. It is designed to be a co-response unit, so it will not be taking the place of police officers. They, as written, it's intended to respond with police officers. And it mentions a lot of the low level things, welfare checks, suicidal folks, which are not necessarily low level, but welfare checks and such, substance use disorder type calls. Absolutely tremendous help to have them back. This is something we had years ago. It's
Like
not
20 years ago, right? And then some budget cuts cut that
yeah,
out.
maybe a little less than that, but it's definitely been a long time.
Yeah.
To have them back, but I know that there's different concepts as to how this should work.
Right.
Some people view this as something that should be standalone and going on the jobs on their own. I don't believe that that's what the intention is for Westchester County right now, but co-response is something that we look forward to. It wasn't co-response when we had it years ago. It was we go and then call them to come after the fact. If we can have somebody co-responding with us, I think that's really a step forward.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I've got to follow up on that. I do want to mention, as far as Thanksgiving, aside from the happiness of the holiday, because as people who know me know I'm a foodie, it's all about food. So very excited about that. But I will say that I'm not going to publicize everything here because I know I'm going to leave somebody out. I will tell you that as much as we can, we will publicize. I know that Galata House is doing something on the 21st. In giving out meals. They're hoping for 800 meals. They're looking for volunteers. You can go on their website. Now that the chief has mentioned it, I contacted Star Bethlehem. They'll be giving out turkeys, which they've done in the past. I don't have the date, but you can contact Star Bethlehem. Congregation Sons of Israel is doing meals as well. They also have information for people who eat kosher and where they can get those meals. Those are the ones I know about, but Feeding Westchester is going to be in the area. I just don't have enough information. But again, their websites, I mean, the beauty of technology. So please go on those websites because they do publicize both on social media and on their websites where they will be able to help with making sure that people have meals for their families, Thanksgiving, the day after, and that weekend. So good stuff in our community, lots of volunteer work, lots of involvement. So very much appreciate it. And thanks for bringing that up, Chief. Super important. Were you finished?
Yes, that's it.
Great, thank you. All righty, Martha.
Okay, is there anybody here from the public who would like to make an organizational announcement? If so, please raise your virtual hand. Do you see anybody, Jamie? No?
I don't see anybody either.
Sure, so moving on, is there anybody here who would like to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda? If so, please raise your virtual hand and please note that we have a limit for 4 minutes. Nobody? Okay, so we're gonna go to our village board resolution.
Actually, organizational announcements are 2 minutes, but since nobody's raising their hand anyway, it's a moot point. Let's keep going.
Okay. Approval of minutes, November 3rd, 2021. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the November 3rd, 2021 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board? Manny, vouchers?
No.
Okay, no, I'm just asking. Sorry, go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Approval of voucher detail, November 17th, 2021. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated November 17, 2021 in the amount of $375,288.45. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments? Is Dale still on Dale? We're in November. That is an unbelievably low number. Are we going to be hit in December and January? What's happening? This is end of year. That is like a small number. Is there a problem?
Good evening, Mayor and Board. No, I don't believe so. I think it's basically just timing.
Okay.
You know, capital project expenditures for this run were low, which are usually higher and increase the voucher detail amount.
Okay.
Also, we did not have a water bill due yet at this point for New York City Water Board, which is also another larger item that comes on. But I was happy to, when I emailed Manuel, our little Friday heads up, you know, of what's in the run, I said I'm usually not happy about spending money, but this run, I was very happy about spending money because we were paying a lot of our instructors for recreation, which means programs were up and running and had activity. So I was definitely happy to spend that money.
Yeah,
That's for
I
sure.
think for the public who will be seeing this, we've had like a year and a half of just, we didn't even mention the pandemic when we talked about the budget, that so much was done and so much work. It doesn't really jump off the page in the budget, and it should. But the community center and programs and camps are so hard hit, senior programs, etc. So I think that's what, Dale, you're referring to, that it's nice to see normalcy, if you want to call it that, that we've got programming back and running. And while the pandemic is still going on, I'm super excited that younger folks are now getting vaccinated. I understand that that all the pharmacies are doing COVID shots for the youth are actually filling up really, really fast. So that makes me happy personally. So great. Thanks, Dale. And thanks, Deputy Mayor. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Authorization for village to accept payment and satisfaction of foreclosed tax lien 21 Edward Street Whereas in accordance with Ossining Village Charter, Article 4, the village treasurer is charged with the duty of collecting real property taxes from persons named in the tax roll. And in accordance with New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 1110, the village treasurer has the authority on or before the expiration of the applicable redemption period to accept payment of real property taxes from such persons, along with all charges authorized by law for real property subject to delinquent tax liens. And whereas the applicable redemption period for the 2019 real property taxes expired on September 22nd, 2021. And with such expiration of the redemption periods, the treasurer has no authority without action by the Board of Trustees to accept further payments. And whereas, notwithstanding the expiration of such redemption periods, the property owner for certain real property located in the village at 21 Edward Street has provided sufficient proof of, one, an ability to pay in full all taxes and assessments against the subject property to bring the account up to date, and two, the ability to make a full and complete settlement in satisfaction of the foreclosed delinquent tax lien. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees hereby authorizes and directs the treasurer to accept payment in an amount sufficient to pay in full the total amount, including any interest, penalties, and other charges authorized by law of the real property taxes and any tax liens both pending and foreclosed for property located at 21 Edward Street, 97.7-5-44 in the Village of Ossining, and authorizes any and all necessary filings or notifications to evidence a release of said liens against the real property. Do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Comments? Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Fire Department appointment, Ossining Hose Company number 1, resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief Sol Cruz, Ossining, New York, was elected an active member of the Ossining Hose Company number 1 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Comments? Martha?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fire Department removal from active roles, resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby removes Marcos Morocho from the active roles of the Ossining Fire Department, Ossining Fire Police and Emergency. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments? Martha?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, is there any continuing business of the board?
Anybody? Nope.
No?
Next.
Okay, moving on to new business of the board. Resolution authorizing the use of matching funds to the grant application to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. Whereas the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation is soliciting applications to the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act for clean and drinking water improvement projects. And whereas the town of Ossining intends on submitting a grant application to this program to fund the North State Road Water Main Replacement Project located in the unincorporated town of Ossining, which has a total estimated project cost of $5,170,610.28. And whereas through an intermunicipal agreement, the Village of Ossining has allocated funding in the capital plan for this proposed project to improve the water distribution system in the unincorporated town of Ossining. And whereas the Environmental Facilities Corporation acquires the use of matching funds to complete the improvement project. Therefore be resolved, the Village of Ossining does hereby authorize the use of matching funds in the amount of up to $2,100,000 as approved in the Village of Ossining capital plan in order to satisfy the required match for the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant program. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Are people reading it? We discussed in the work session. Do you need another minute
Second.
before you second it? Okay, thank you. Are there comments, questions? I'm seeing puzzled looks. So I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable. We're good?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, moving on, is there anybody here who would like to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but of relevance to the common good of the village? If so, please click on your virtual hand, and please note that we have a 3-minute opportunity for speaking.
Anybody? We always have the visitor recognition. Anybody?
We do have a hand, yes.
Okay. I think Victoria Garrity is coming over. Don't see her.
She's on her way.
Okay. Good evening, Victoria.
Hey, folks. Thanks for letting me jump on for a moment. It was a very interesting meeting. I'm actually here today in my capacity as a staffer for your New York State Senator. I was delighted to see that you're moving forward with another element of the water treatment facility. The Senator really appreciated the opportunity to tour the facility earlier this year, and we look forward to continuing to support any efforts from the state side that we can. So congratulations on moving forward with that additional funding. Good luck.
Thanks. Thanks for bringing that up and for being there. I've said this before, but I'm going to jump on the opportunity. Victoria was there as well. And believe you me, it's not her first time taking a tour of the facility. Many, many tours. Big supporter of so many of the important work that needs to get done for the water plant and the facility at large. Anyone can ask for a tour. There are a lot of tours done by students. It is a really great site to see for those of you interested in engineering and computers and project management, environmental science. You don't get an opportunity like this very often, and the folks that work there are really second to none. They will take you on a tour. It's not just for politicians, it is for everybody. The school oftentimes takes tours, and schools from other districts come in. So putting in a PSA for those of you that are interested to please contact the manager's office, and you will enjoy it. You can ask for the 1 hour tour or the 3 hour tour. Either works. Thank you, Victoria. Okay. I don't see any other visitors raising their hands.
Okay, then I see, do we adjourn for an executive session still, or do we
Yes,
just adjourn?
executive session for matters of personnel, please, Martha.
Okay, then can I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting for an executive session? For
So
matters of
moved.
personnel?
Matter personnel.
Second.
Did you get that, Martha? Bob Fritchie on the, okay, and then
Okay.
followed by Omar, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, let's take the vote.
All those in favor?
Aye. Ladies and
Opposed?
gentlemen, oh, sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Folks, thank you very much for joining us tonight, 9:40 p.m., 11/17/2021. And this concludes our meeting for this evening. We will see you next.
Mayor, just,
Are we
there's no
having
meeting
meeting
next
next
week.
Wednesday?
There's
No.
there's no meeting next week. Next will be December 1st.
That was my whole point of saying how the staff is off Thursday and Friday and the village is closed. There will be no meeting next Wednesday. Thank you all, and good night.